它是当前全世界最火的绿色小鸟多儿。这位是这只戏精小鸟的幕后主脑。
I know this is your first time being interviewed in China.
Yes.
这只鸟出自于一款以游戏为逻辑的语言学习软件，它以颠覆常理的营销方式加催命式劝学，让全球超过1000万人连续打卡学习超过1年。
If you play too safe, people don't pay attention to you.
今年2月，多邻国突然宣布多儿死了，一众网民连日打卡，把多儿给抢救回来，让这只小鸟火遍全球。
You basically have 5 seconds to try to catch people's attention.
How was his unhinged personality is formed step by step?
这次我回到 marketer 的身份，找到多邻国的首席营销官，去揭秘这只疯批小绿鸟。
Hi, Manu.
Oh, hi.
How
Hi.
are you?
Let's
take a seat.
Yes, thank you.
Wow, I like the huge muskets.
Yes, the superstar of TikTok and of The Office.
Yeah. The Door is Dead is one of the most sensational campaign of the year. I think it's a very successful word of mouth marketing. Since a lot of my friends, they literally got to discover this app through the campaign.
That's great.
So I wonder where this crazy idea come from.
I think what happens is that people who have a long streak, they get to meet Duo on a daily basis. Because there is such an emotional connection with the mascot, with the product, when we announced that Duo was dead, it's almost like if your pet dog died one day, right? So it just creates a very strong emotion.
释怀走的第一天，想他。
You know, what we try to do with our marketing in general is to try to get people to talk about us. Our brand building is very much built around word of mouth and creating virality for the brand. So we always try to find ideas that are provoking and we want people to ultimately do that lesson.
It's a very eye-catching campaign. And how was his unhinged personality is formed step by step? Did you take any reference from the users' reactions? Or?
Yeah, the unhinged personality was not a strategy. We figured out that this was working because first, you know that we send a lot of notifications. Some of those notifications, if you haven't done your lesson after a few days, will start to feel a little unhinged, right? And what we realized is that our community was talking a lot about this. And as opposed to trying to protect ourselves from those conversations, like many brands would see this as a negative aspect.
Right, very risky.
We actually did the opposite.
Because I saw your talk on one of the DuoCon, the conference, that you mentioned a fried chicken wing is an inspiration.
After all, without you, we would never have thought about cooking, Duo.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, people, because the owl is so persistent, always want you to come back and do your lesson.
Yeah.
Some people say, oh, one day I'm going to take this owl and I'm going to fry it and I'm going to eat it. We were like, okay, that's what they like about our brand.
Right.
Let's lean into this and let's try to push harder and just be where the community is and try to entertain them and show that as a brand, we can have the same sense of humor.
I think it really shows that making a brand more relatable and playful can really drive engagement.
除了可爱的多儿，多邻国还有一个极具个性，还时不时给你翻个白眼的角色，那就是拽姐。
下集节目见，或者不见。
I would say she is a very indifferent and interesting character to me because it's very rare to see a brand that have a character that's so sarcastic and a little bit aloof, which is so different to Duo. How do you think this unique character helps with the brand marketing?
Lily, teenage girl with purple hair, very popular character, very relatable for younger users.
They say she's like a Gen Z character.
She's a Gen Z, she's moody, she's
indifferent.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people have been identifying themselves with Lily or see Lily as someone like that they know because of that personality trait for a very specific type of audience.
Yeah.
You know, the way I was talking about fandoms, I think this is similar in that you have different characters in our app with different personalities, and I think all of them represent a part of our audience, make people feel like they can relate to Duolingo through the characters that we have in there. And for that reason, it just opens up an audience and creates more of a personal connection with the product itself.
So basically, different character attracts a different kind of people.
Exactly.
How you combine Lily with the fandom? Do you have any examples of that?
Yeah, so for example, in China, you know, there's this big K-pop fandom happening right now.
This that pretty girl Jenny, we're so happy she's right here in LA.
Don't post, take it to the course.
Obviously, Jennie being a superstar when it comes to K-pop. So there's always a message underlying that is about the product, and in that case, it's about learning Korean to be able to live your passion.
You're so good at leveraging of culture, how to link culture to your passion, and then encourage people to learn that language.
Exactly. Culture influences a lot what people learn on Duolingo.
还有另外一件更加荒唐的事儿，在堪称美国春晚的体育赛事 Super Bowl 中，多邻国花了70万美金买了5秒的广告，只为了让多儿放个屁。为什么他们做了一个这么无厘头的广告？万一翻车了，那怎么办？
And I read from your LinkedIn post, you mentioned that you have the 70% grind and 30% expand a methodology for the team. But for the big campaign, high budget campaign like the Super Bowl, it seems like you went for the riskier 30% expand routes. Were you ever worried about the results before it officially launched?
Yes and no. In some ways, the Super Bowl was an experiment.
Right.
But it was a very controlled environment for an experiment because the Super Bowl, most brands at that time would spend about $7 million to buy the media for a Super Bowl ad, like the one we did, right? So,
Like for how long?
for 30 seconds.
Okay.
And on top of that, they would spend a few millions on production because most brands, when they do a Super Bowl ad, they want it to look absolutely incredible and be high production value. So it's a large budget. For us, because it was our first one, we can't afford 30 seconds. We're only spending $700,000.
On 5 seconds.
Yes, we can only afford 5 seconds. How can we make those 5 seconds as memorable as possible? So it was very much a creative task, right? You basically have 5 seconds to try to catch people's attention. It was an experiment because we'd never done this before, but it was controlled in that we only spent a relatively small amount of money compared to other brands. And we developed the creative internally as well. Really, the point was to try to get people talking about our ad, and it definitely did that.
That's a very bold move.
对比起其他品牌，多邻国用小成本撬动了大流量，在那30%的冒险性尝试里面，甚至还有一些是花0元办大事的。
I mean, the one that comes to mind that I really liked was last year, the team went to Charlie XCX concert. She's a very famous singer from the UK, and she was doing a tour, and the first day of the tour, the team showed up there. I love this because it's very scrappy, it's very stunty, a very creative idea as well.
Was it planned or is it a spontaneous move without communicating with the singers team?
No, we didn't communicate with the singers team. We just turned up there. So it was a stunt. Most brands would have looked at, okay, I want that artist to talk about my brand. I'm going to go and spend a lot of money. Our solution was to approach that from a creative standpoint. How can we get her to acknowledge our brand?
And this is obviously the 30% expand.
Yeah, it's part of the experiment. Yeah.
Very interesting.
It's the expand.
作为市场营销人，我特别好奇，他们有着怎样的花钱原则？
You also mentioned that money cannot save bad ideas and creativity is more important than budgets.
Yes.
But for example, with the Barbie premiere, you only spent $300 USD on props.
Yeah.
Whereas for other brands, if they have the same opportunity, they might have already spent heavily to generate the same buzz. So what's your approach allocating your marketing budget and where do you spend your big budget on?
I think if you start looking at problems with a money lens, a budget lens, you don't end up doing good work. And I think that's what most brands tend to do. It's easy to spend budget on problems that are, let's say, awareness. You end up basically using money as a way to achieve your objective as opposed to thinking about your objective and how to address that creatively. That's why I always try to get my team to not think about budget first, think about idea first, and if this idea has real strong potential, then the budget comes on top of that, right? So it's never budget first, it's always idea first, and then budget comes as a support.
这下看出来 ，creativity 是整个营销的核心，但万一遇到创意枯竭的时候，又怎么办呢？
But were there any moments where you felt the whole team, the lack of inspirations? So how do you handle that?
We are quite different from other marketing teams where usually you have a creative department. In my team, I don't see it this way. The way I say often to the team is that every single one of you have something unique to bring to our brand. You have fandoms, you have passions. You are able to bring ideas that allow us to connect to a different audience.
Right.
So, we've got people in the team that are fan of K-pop and they're not necessarily in creative roles, right?
Oh, that's where the K-pop content comes from.
Right, because they understand K-pop very, very well. When we add of creative ideas, we look into the different fandoms that sits within the team and that becomes an opportunity for us to source new ideas.
Yeah. And from my marketing experience, I know that a lot of big brands, they are usually very careful with what they post on social media. Sometimes it could even take a couple days to approve a content. During the impending TikTok ban situation, your team has managed to post 8 pieces over 7 hours, which has created a lot of excitement around learning Chinese.
Welcome, TikTok refugee. 欢迎洋抖难民.
I've been wondering, how's the internal approval process like in your team?
There is very little approval process in the team because the team that works on our social account is a very small team. They've been working on the brand for some time and they really understand our brand tone. We've also made mistakes along the way with that same team. And I think the learning process has been it's a lot better than the approval process. So I don't approve every single post that go out. But if the team feels that something is on the line, they know they can come to me and they will come to me. And that's the best relationship you can have. This is the best working environment for any marketing team because it allows you to be creative and it allows you to move fast. You know, the TikTok ban, if you had, let's say, 5 layers of approval for you just miss the moment.
Exactly. I think after this conversation, what makes me the most impressive is that you give a lot of freedom to the team. You respect them a lot, and that leads to very quick and fast actions. And those actions actually bring to different levels of impression and awareness. So that's very impressive.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Thank you so much, Manu.
Thank you.
It's my pleasure having this conversation with you.
Likewise, thank you for the great questions.